The next thing I would like to discuss is metrics and dimensions. This is something I'd really like you to understand before we move forward. Every report that we'll use in Google Analytics is made up of a combination of metrics and dimensions. So let's review what they both are. Metrics are quantitative measurements. They're sums, averages, and ratios. They are numbers that describe behavior. And dimensions are qualitative properties. They are characteristics of your users and their sessions. They're things like location and the browser that the user used. These characteristics can't be added up or expressed as numbers. Thus, they are the qualitative characteristics. Got it? The table views in most Google Analytics reports organize dimension values into rows, and metrics get organized into columns. Let's look at an example. As I mentioned, metrics and dimensions are reported in tables similar to this one. If I scroll down a bit, if we look at the top of the screen, we can see the primary dimensions that are available for the report that we are looking at. Because we're in the location report, which you can see that location is bolded in the left-hand side menu, the primary dimensions are country, city, continent, and subcontinent. And we're in the primary dimension country. Thus, countries are listed in the first column. Remember, dimensions are rows, so each row is a different country from the United States to Australia. Then the metrics are the columns to the right of the country column. They are things like sessions, new users, bounce rate, and average session duration. So the metric for United States sessions is 318, and new users is 192. And remember, this is in context of the time period that we selected, which happens to be 1 month. You can actually set that at the top of the page. So we could also switch the primary location, which again happens to be location dimensions across the top. We could change it to city dimension if we like. And now we see cities like Samara, Freiburg, Dover, and Exeter. And we also have not set, which means Google has not received any information for the dimensions selected. And this could be a variety of reasons depending on the report. In location reports, we can see not set when Google can't determine the IP address of the user. But it can also mean that there's some spam activity or a bot. And this might be the case if it's a larger percentage of your overall traffic, which it is here. This is not necessarily the point of the video, but since we're seeing it, we might as well interpret it just a little bit. One thing we could do is look at the metrics associated with this not set dimension. For instance, the average session is pretty quick, 12 seconds, and the new user percentage is over 90, so probably a portion of these are spam. Back to metrics and dimensions. Most reports allow us to add in a second dimension. So let's do that now so you can see what it looks like. Beneath the primary dimension is a secondary dimension dropdown, and there are a bunch of options here. Let's, under Users, choose Browser as an example. And if we scroll down, we can now see a second dimension column has been added. So it's City on the far left, and then Browser just to the right of it. And now we can view the metrics that have to do with these two dimensions combined. For example, viewers from Dover using Firefox account for 16 sessions. Another way to say this is like this. Of the primary dimension Dover, there are Firefox users that account for 16 sessions. Here's something to take note of. There are more metrics located to the right, but not every metric works with every dimension. Each dimension and metric has a scope, and it only makes sense to combine dimensions and metrics with the same scope. An example of this is sessions in a session-based metric, and it should only be combined with session-level dimensions like city and source. It would not make sense to combine sessions with action-level dimensions like page. Let's look at other dimensions and metrics. To do that, we'll need to switch over to another screen that lets us create customized reports. We're not going to go over creating a customized report now. I just want to show you more specifically the types of metrics and dimensions available so you can get a clearer idea of how these things work. So I'll click on New Custom Report. In Google Analytics, metrics and dimensions have different associated colors. Metrics are blue and dimensions are green. So let's select metrics, and you can see all the metrics available to us. Under acquisition, we can see organic searches. Under advertising, we can see AdSense click-through rates. There's a bunch of options under behavior and so on. If I keep scrolling, I get to social metrics and user metrics. The user metrics are some of the most important ones. They're things like average session duration, time on page, and bounce rate. We discussed bounce rate a bit earlier, which is the percentage of sessions that only have one interaction. So a user goes onto your website, lands on one of the pages, and then leaves. Then, if we select the dimensions dropdown, we can see all the dimensions that are available to us. Just like metrics, there are very many. We have acquisition dimensions and behavior dimensions, and just like metrics, we have user dimensions. But in this case, the dimensions are things like age, browser, country, city, etc. Qualitative, whereas metrics are quantitative. So that's about all for our discussion of metrics and dimensions. In the next video, we're going to start to explore the Google Analytics interface.